Welcome back to the Hawk's Nest. It's been a minute. So, to give y'all some background before we start the video, I have actually started a group chat for those who want to try the blessed month of Ramadan and fast during this blessed month. It's about 20 participants, including myself, and about 3 Muslims. So, of course, they fasted before. I thought it was going to be a good idea to, have people come in, do like a little cleanse for a month, get away from distractions in terms of food, of course, water, drinking, try to get away from any vulgar music, becoming more patient, social media, things of that sort. So I decided to, let me go ahead and interview everybody, create some content for the page, and of course, I'm curious to see how they feel and how much they've improved during this time. So, without further ado, our first interview is my guy, my main man, brother Tay Morton. He's actually doing something crazy. Of course, you will see in the video and hear it in the video during this interview. So, without further ado, enjoy the show. Assalamu alaikum.
My journey has brought me to an understanding of the divine forces with which we have all been bestowed. It was in this search that I came upon a revelation, which has called me to guide millions of people towards their righteous destiny.
Let's see.
Yeah, it says recording on my end.
But yeah, bro, I think like you telling me about, your 24-hour, fast and how you got to that point was just, I had to get it recorded, bro. Cause like,
Yeah.
I feel like there's nobody, I won't say nobody, I say a very, very small percent of people that would even do that. You feel me? That would even go that mile. Honestly, when you told me you did that, I told my sister, I was in DC at the time when you told me you did it. I told my sister and I told Enid, and they were just like, yeah, nah, he can have that. I was like, yeah, he can have that.
I wouldn't. That's not something I would do on my own, right? I was telling you, it's like Ramadan because you invited me to like partake. It's the only reason why, right? Like, and I remember, I think it was like, was I in grad school or something like that? But like 2 or 3 years ago, it was like the first time you like invited me, and I remember. It was super hard because I wasn't like working or anything, but I was at the house like chilling, right? But like that was like my first. I don't know, my mind was open then, right? But it was only for one day, so I was like, all right, I'm done now. After this is done, I'm done. But now that like I'm older, I got a job, and like things are just like I don't know, easier, right? So like I mentioned to you before this call, like I was looking for a way, I think like subconsciously to like induce some like stress, you feel me, or like some sense of like. I don't know, control, right? So like now you invited me to do this and like me being connected to the group, like I have like a responsibility, right? And then like I was already looking for an opportunity. So I'm like, what's 24 hours? Like what's 12, right? I might as well just try to hit it again, right? So like, yeah, it just made sense.
When do you feel like is like the hardest part of the day? Because like for me personally, I think like once I get from the morning, let's say eat at, for example, 6 o'clock, I'm good until like our average lunchtime is around 12, 1 o'clock. I start to feel a little hungry. So like, what about for you?
Lunchtime, because I think I told you this. I don't really eat breakfast anyways, right? So like I'm kind of already fishing for that portion. But like you know me, I enjoy McDonald's. Like lunchtime food is like my go-to, right? You know what I mean? So like at lunchtime for sure, and then like maybe like hour 15, 16, like my body feels tired. Like it's not my mind telling me I'm hungry. It's just like on top of being tired, being like sleepy and being hungry. Like I think it just like that's when I start to feel it the most.
Amazing. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think a couple of days ago, I put in the group chat like, from now on, every day I'm gonna end up like putting somebody influential into the group chat who fasted. And doing that and looking at people who actually fasted. I know that you're big in like philosophy. I remember the one time you and I were in Colorado, I think.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like stoicism and everything like that. Ever since then I was like so hooked on it. And like looking at it now and you mentioning now like you trying to look for stress, that just proves like in a certain sense that's how you not only find yourself, but find your purpose in this world, right?
Exactly. I think so, bro. Because it's like, I mentioned this to you. So like the transition from like living with my grandmother to like going to college, going to grad school, and then like getting to the job that I'm in now, like the level of stress is just like the lowest I probably ever experienced in my life, right? Like, and it's not, I'm not saying like my childhood was like terrible or like, right? But if I could like pick another, I think Kyrie said this, or not Kyrie, Kevin Durant, he was like, if I could pick another life, like I would have, right? So
Mm.
now I'm like a step closer, right, to where I want to be, right? I'm making like a good salary, right? And like I just got a bonus like less than a week ago, right? So like those stressors that I had as like a child or like in my youth and like growing up, like those are like they're not there anymore, right? So like I truly can like pretty much do whatever I want to, right? And if you in my opinion, if you never had it before, it's really easy for you to like step into a lifestyle that's like not truly you, if that makes sense. That's just my opinion. And my
Mm.
myself, right? Because my family didn't like have a lot of money, but now I have a decent amount of money, so I can like take trips whenever I want to, go out to eat whenever I want to, buy groceries from Whole Foods if I want to. Like, there's nothing that's really like hindering me from like doing what I want, right? So like now I need to find a way to impose some stress on myself, right? Like just to make sure I'm I don't know, bro, not becoming like privileged or whatever. I don't know. I'm trying to impose some stress on myself, I guess. I think Ramadan was a great opportunity to like practice that. And I hate to use the word stress and like in Ramadan together, but I think that's a part of it, right? Because you're like not giving yourself the opportunity to do what you do every day, right? So, and it's easy. It's only, and I think I mentioned this to you. It's easy because it's easy to go 24 hours now, is because like I owe it to like the group and like to you as you being my friend. You invited me on this, right? So like I want to do the best I can. So
I think stress is the right word to use, bro. Because at the end of the day, like for us, Ramadan is a time of not only eating, but actually putting yourself in other people's shoes and actually realizing there's people out there right now who don't have food. Like what we're feeling right now is what they feel every day. Like they have no choice. But I can easily go to the kitchen right now, grab a fruit, grab a sandwich, and I can break my fast. But I think like for us, I think you mentioned it, like for us, putting that stress on ourselves is something that is important. Like I don't know how to I know what you mean. Like I think as human beings, when we go from being a child, of course we've been through different things throughout life, and then getting to a point now where you're getting a check. I'm getting a check every couple weeks or every month. Like it's almost guaranteed unless they lay me off, basically, right? Which means if I have the check, that means I have food. If I have food, I have energy. Like, but I
right.
understand where you're coming from. Like when it comes to stress, I totally understand. And you tell me this. I know you've been working on personal projects and stuff like that. Like, has there been a chance for you to be able to focus a little bit better without being able to eat?
I think so. But I think the first day was like the hardest, right? Because just for backstory, we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but I was looking for something to like induce stress, if that makes sense, right? Um, so even though like I've been able to fast for 24 hours, it wasn't because like I woke up one morning like, yeah, let's do 24, right? Like I mentioned, like Ramadan was a part of it, and then like I went on YouTube and found like videos of people who were like doing the stuff that I wanted to do, if that makes sense, right? So I'm able to, how do I say this? My bad, bro. My screen went off. But I'm able to like do this because like I know there's a path, right? I know there's some rules that if I follow, it'll be easy. So to answer your question, the first day was the hardest for me. But after that, like I was able to like be hyper focused on work, my personal projects and all that stuff. It just, and I don't know why, but it just kind of like worked out.
Mm.
But yeah, not because like I was like not because I was hyper focused on like getting to that, like being in a place where I could just be hyper focused on my goals. It's just like Ramadan, some insights from other people in a similar experience. And I knew like what to do to get to that point.
Exactly.
But yeah.
So what's next? Like with this, are you trying to like make this more of a routine or?
I think so. And I guess I have like some predispositions, right? So I never really ate breakfast, really. Like, you know me, like a lot of my calories I get like late lunches and like dinner, like it's just like those are really big meals for me. So it's really easy for me to go like 12 hours without eating, but the latter half is pretty hard. So I know I have a lot more growing to do, but I do want to make it a part of my life. Like I see the value.
Definitely. I mean, thinking about it now, I guess like for me, looking at all the people that have fasted and now people like us who are also fasting, there has to be some type of reason behind it, right? I mean, for us as human beings, I mean, with sentience and consciousness, for us to say like, you know what, I'm not going to eat for X amount of hours. I think like has to be a reason behind these influential and these big thinkers doing it. And I think like for you doing it now, bro, I think I'm excited to see how much it affects your life. Like I think it's gonna affect your life in a very major way to the point where like I know I said this before. Like I think sometimes when it comes to different type of foods, especially here in America, they have a different type of effect on your mood to the point where like you seem a little bit more sluggish throughout the day, or you seem a little bit more moody throughout the day. You know what I mean? So I think like you being able to do it and then get through that hunger stage and then be able to just be hyper focused.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, it's gonna just you about to sprout, bro. Tell me.
I appreciate it, bro. I do. But I want to thank you, to be honest. It's just like restraint is just not me. Like, you know me. Like, if it's something I want to do, I'm just going to do it. And like, I figure the rest out. You feel me? I ask for forgiveness later and, you know what I mean, kind of do what I want to do. But that's not real, right? Sometimes it can be unhealthy for relationships. Financially, it can be unhealthy sometimes. Like, there's a lot going on. And like, there's no one to control. For me personally, there's no one to control my life right now but me. Like, I'm in control, right? So I can self-destruct or I can be as great as I want to be. And we talked about this a while ago, like, especially when you're trying to start a business, it's like there's no one, when you wake up in the morning, there's no one telling you, like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, right? There's no one like, you have to spend this amount of money to get this, right? There's no one telling you to pick supplier A over supplier B, right? Like, there's no one weighing those things for you. It's just you, right? And I don't know, it's easy to fool yourself, right? Like, for example, like I'm working with a clothing designer in Hong Kong, and he usually doesn't get on until 9:30, 10 o'clock my time. And this is what I mean by fooling yourself, right? So before I started like this like endeavor, this adventure, I used to stay up until 10:30, 11, 12 o'clock, right? Doing nothing, like watching TV on YouTube, whatever it may be. But now that this is when I like started working with them, maybe a weekend, I was like, I'm tired. Like, why don't I just find a manufacturer in the US or Mexico? Right? Why am I put myself through this? But right, like just based on the budget that I have, like my goals, this was like the best option for me. Right. This is based on my knowledge, it's the only option that I have that can work for me, just based on the income, the budget that I'm willing to spend, like the income that I have currently. Right. So why would I tell myself I'm sleepy if like I really want to achieve this goal, right? That's what I mean by fooling yourself. You've been up since 12 o'clock for the last 2.5, 3 weeks, right? What's the difference between then and now, right? So
exactly.
That's kind of what I mean by like that. You can be self-destructive or you can be like as great as you want to be. But I'll say like fasting in general and like going through this experience with like the group and you like during Ramadan, it's kind of showing me like, if I'm expecting some sort of outcome, I just can't. If I'm expecting like a great outcome, I just can't be doing like regular stuff. You can't just be, right? Like, you just can't. I mean, you can't speak to yourself regularly. You can't interact with people like the same way you were before. It's just different. Like, I know that was a ramble, but that's just how I'm thinking now.
Not at all, bro. Not at all. I think it all correlates. I think it all correlates. I think for you and having to deal with somebody who is, you know, ahead of time when it comes to the time zone and having to actually, map out your day to day and realize like, bro, I'm getting a little bit too comfortable. Like
Right.
I need to actually go back to the stress that I was going through in college or even in high school. I think at that point then you were just like so used to stress to the point where you weren't really like afraid of doing anything. But now like we become comfortable, we have to like actually find those things to make it a little bit more challenging. And I
Right.
think like fasting is one of those things
Right.
for sure.
Uh, I hope this fast can translate into other parts of my life. Like we were talking about like grocery budgets a while back, and I mentioned that I spent like close to $700 on like groceries one time, right? And I there was a party that we had like that weekend, but my grandmother and my mother was $600, $700. They could have like fed us for months, right? Like so, there's like a disconnect somewhere. Something doesn't. Granted, I live in Chicago now, and like Ohio's a bit cheaper. Like the cost of living is a little bit lower, but there's a disconnect somewhere, right? Like I live with myself. I'm lucky enough to be able to work from home, right? I'm not running back and forth doing other things that I don't know that could take away from me, like prepping food or thinking about what I want to buy and buying like with intention. There's nothing stopping me, right? So
Mhm.
I started tracking like my expenses. I'm like, wow, this just doesn't add up. But I'm not saying I deserve to be able to spend X amount of dollars on food. Like I have worked hard to like get to a place to where if I wanted to, I could spend that $700, but it's just not healthy. And it's a bit self-destructive. And I think you won't realize it I wouldn't have realized it until it was too late, right? Like, so yeah.
I mentioned this before. I think like, especially here in the States, I think we become a little bit too comfortable, right? Especially like saying that's a lot of bread on food. That's for a family. It definitely is. But of
Yeah.
course, you did mention Chicago, but I think as for us as Americans, we become a little bit too comfortable, and to the point where, as I said before, like you think about it, bro. Like if you were to go to like a different country, for example, and let's say we would have to have like their smallest currency. For example, our smallest currency is not a penny, but like, let's say it's a dollar, for example. You go somewhere with a peso, you're not about to get no food. Like, but here with a dollar, I can go to the store, buy some ramen noodles, go to the water fountain,
Make it work.
make it work, or I can eat it raw. You feel me?
Yeah.
So here in America, like we become so comfortable because like food is so accessible. Like it's not really hard for us to get food. Like for
Right.
somebody to have $150, bro, like it's not a lot of money. You feel me?
Right.
But like in other countries now, bro, they trying to figure out how to get food and what to eat. So like I think for us, being able to fast during this month and reflect on not only ourselves, but realize how privileged we are. Like, we're so privileged.
And that's like that's the worst part, right? Because when something happens to us out on the streets, like someone cuts us off or they bump into us, or like we have an interaction that we think wasn't like conducive to, I don't know. I guess it didn't go the way we thought it should have went. Right? We get offended, right? But
Easily.
yeah,
Over the
you
smallest
got
thing.
a house to go back to, right? Somebody bump into you on the bus, you got to bust a ride, right? Somebody cuts you off, you're in a car. Like these are all these privileges that we like. I don't know, bro. It's just like I don't have the words for it, but you get what I'm saying. Like me personally, bro, I'm just in a place where like I'm starting to like tap into all the opportunities that I had, and like I'm trying to figure out ways to be grateful. Like, right? That's the end all be all for me. And I want to say like YouTube has been a big help because you can like see yourself in other people, right? What I mean is like, let's say you want to start doing something, right? You can find someone to kind of emulate and like, right? And like try to like derive their success based on like what you're seeing, right? So like, I mean, we talked about this a while ago. Like now you can get on social media, YouTube, Instagram specifically, and like see people grow. Like you can see the change in people, right? Right. And imagine if you could do that from the time you were, for me, if I could do that from freshman year of high school until now, right? Like it would be so easy for me to pick up on things that just aren't, I could see myself. I would know this isn't me. This is me, right? I need to stop doing this and start doing this, right? But you can get on YouTube right now. And if you're interested in fasting, Islam, not using your cell phone, like spending less on groceries, like all these things, right? You can find someone who's doing it, who has done it, and like pull out all the insights you need to, right, to like replicate what they're doing, right? And a lot of times it's not hard. But the thing is, you might find someone, for example, fasting. Like I remember the first channel I found, this guy, he was fasting for like 5 days on, 5 days off, and it was a lifestyle for him. Like he didn't see pain, but I shouldn't expect to be able to fast for 5 days on, like not eating at all for 5 days and then eating. He had to put in work to get to that point, right? So like that's one thing you need to be able to do. Like if you can't tell yourself like it took him time to get to this point, you got to be able to like click that mouse and go back to like 2020, 2019, 2017, 2016 and see like where that person was, right? So like there's a lot in there, especially if you start to like not enjoy the image of yourself, like if that makes sense. Like you start to see stuff and hear stuff from yourself that just isn't like, nah, this isn't me, this can't be me, right? So
I think it takes a sense of consciousness to even notice that. I think us as people, you just mentioned it, right? Like you mentioned people like being cut off or, you know, having things bother us so easily. And I think like for us as people living in a comfortable world, with those videos, people watch those videos, they're watching it because it says I fasted for this many days. They're not watching it to learn something. They're watching it for entertainment. Right. So I think like for those videos, and so how you see how it's so easily accessible, right?
Right.
So like I think like it's different for everybody. Like for you to go on there and be like, you know what, I'm watching this because I want to actually change something in my life, want to improve something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was talking to Enid yesterday, and I was like, here in America, you can get out the mud. You can get out the mud and make it, right? But these third world countries, bro, you have to actually have, for you to do that, it's probably gonna be sports. Most likely gonna be sports. But so, like for you to even do that in a professional manner, takes a lot of freaking hard work. But for those who actually make it for real, let's say you get a job in being a doctor or engineer or even a chef, your parents had to have something before you to even get to that point, to even invest in you. If parents have to invest in you, bro, it's a lot harder, right? So here in the States, bro, like we've come to the point now where like things are it's just so simple. It's so simple. And I'm not saying that our journeys aren't worth praising. But what I am saying is that we definitely take it for granted for sure.
Right.
Take it for granted.
No, you're not lying. This is how I kind of like picture what you just explained to me. Like if you're in a third world country, it's a dog fight for you to like, and it doesn't. This is I think this is one of the privileges we have here in America. Like after 8 o'clock, like it can be over for you. Like you know, you get to sleep and wake up, be rested, and go to Starbucks, get coffee, and like you don't have to turn it on again until 9 o'clock the next morning. Like right. And I think that's kind of what separates like super successful entrepreneurs from I'll use myself as an example, like an average Joe, right? You hear stories about like, I'm just going to use Elon Musk as an example, but like someone who I'll put it this way, day in and day out, it seems like all he thought about was Tesla or like PayPal back in the day. Like those were the only options, right? He was hyper fixated on those things, right? And he was rewarded for that, right? So think about it like super simple. Like if let's say you want to be a VP or right, a director level or manager level, right? If that's all you dedicated your time to, I'm sure you could achieve that. But here in America, it's so easy for us to like let me stop using here in America, and I'll use myself as an example. It's so easy for me to be distracted because I have laptop, iPad, right? Like I live in a nice building, like I live next to nice restaurants, and like there's stores and stuff all around, and those things aren't like criminal or evil at all. It's just it's a fact of the matter, right? But if I didn't have any of these things and I just focused on like my goal, whatever it may be, right, I would be uncomfortable, but there would be something sweet or some success at the end that I was like, okay, now I can see the reason why. But back to your point, you can get on YouTube sometimes, you can see that, you just see the outcome, you don't see like the struggle, right? And you become like, you start to think like, why not me? Why can't I? Why can't, right? Like he had to have had, she had to have had, like sometimes it may be the case, but the thing is like, you don't see what this person was doing to go from 100 subscribers to 1,000 subscribers to 10, right? 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, a million, right? We don't see that. Right? But you should always assume that, right? Like
always a process somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Always a process somewhere in there. And I think like that's a great point, bro. I think I never really noticed that until I got older. So I look at people, for example, right? For example, I'll probably be, let's say I was in college, right? And I see somebody with a nice car. I'm like, why they got a nice car? Like, dang, like your mama got bread, your daddy got bread. But not realizing like, you don't know what they did, bro. They could have invested in Bitcoin back in 2015. They could have a business right now. Like you don't know what happened in that matter of time for them to get to where they are now. Right. But I think now that I'm older now, I started to realize like there is always a starting point. You don't know, we don't know what they went through, bro. People look at these rappers and think like, dang, I wish they had their life. No, you don't.
Right.
No, you don't. Because for them to even get to that, have that mindset they have now, they had to go through something first. But you don't know what they went through when they're little. You know, you don't know what they went through. Right. So you made a great point. Like for somebody to even get to that point, going back to what you said about the guy fasting for 5 days on, 5 days off. But you might think it's sweet. You know what I mean? For him doing that, it's very, very impressive, right? For you to actually get to that point, bro, it takes practice. It takes practice.
Come on.
But I'm not saying it's not doable, but it takes practice.
That's it. But yeah, I still have to say, like, and I think you touched on this point too. It's not a bad thing for people to have like privilege, right? So I remember I was listening to this podcast. I cannot remember her name, but anyways, I think she, I don't know the words exactly, but her family, they were like landed gentry in England. And she made this comment. She was like, well, let me circle back. So I think they were like landed gentry in England or something like that. And somebody was interviewing her for like a book or something like that. And they asked her like, what do you think about, so I guess in England, like landed gentry and stuff like that doesn't really matter. Like titles don't matter as much anymore. And she made the point, she was like, I think there's value in like titles. And the way she put it is, there are families who had titles before, land, whatever it may be, and in a few generations it was gone. And she said, the only reason it was gone is because they stopped trying to find like new and innovative ways to maintain it, right? New and creative ways to like make sure literally like the taxes on the land were paid, and then have to like auction off portions of the family's like assets to like maintain a lifestyle. So she just made a point like there's value in that. And then she went in to tell like I guess it was like 4 generations before her, like her maybe great grandfather worked really hard to like, I think he was into like what was it? I think it was like energy and like what was like now known as like real estate. So he worked really hard to get him to that point. So before him there was nothing, right? So he made this, and then his family, the next generation carried that, and so on and so forth. But I still have to say, like I think this is common here in America now. Like we penalize people for having like wealth, and there are some reasons why like maybe penalty should be like placed on people. But if your family worked really hard to, and I think this is the crazy part. So like the first generation, like their thought wasn't like I want to be rich, right? It's like I need to build something for my family, right? And I think like as time goes on, then people like see you as this thing, right? But it's so easy to forget about like the grandfather or the grandmother who put together this plan, and like it took them 60 years to get to that point, but like by the time they died, they had this foundation laid. So like if they, and this is the part, so like the grandmother or grandfather builds the wealth, right? And they have to train like their grandsons, daughters, whoever it may be, to like be in a place to maintain that wealth, you know? Like, so there's like work on both ends, but we don't see that when it comes to like the fourth or the fifth generation. We just think these people are just rich, right? They're just privileged or whatever it may be. Bro, let me grab my charger real quick.
I bet.
But yeah, I saw that to say like we can miss the picture, like the big picture, right? Because all we see is like the outcome.
All the time, bro. All the time. And I think you have to be a little bit more aware. Because I feel like once you actually work hard for something, for you, for example, for someone who went to grad school, who did put in the hours, I think once you got to that point, then you start to realize, like, just like somebody else did the work to get to where they are, I did the same thing too. And for the ladies podcast, like,
yeah.
I mean, for us, the people who are trying to get to that point, I mean, we start to realize, we have to try to understand, like, we shouldn't have penalized people for being privileged, because at the end of the day, like, that's the parents' goal. Parents' goal is to actually have their children comfortable.
Right.
Right. So nah, bro, we definitely do. We forget, and I think the reason why we do that is because, especially for us as African American, we tend to make things, make something out of nothing, right? And for us, whenever, for example, right, we brag on things like not having food in the house, brag about things like having EBT or WIC, right? And when a person doesn't have those things, it's like we try to make them seem less than. But in a certain way though, then it comes back towards, having a certain type of shoes though, right? You don't have anything, but you have to have this type of shoes. If you don't have these shoes, you're also less than.
Right.
So like, the reason why I said that is because for us African Americans, we're the ones who make people seem less than for having something.
Right.
Even though that we're trying to get to that point as well.
Right.
And, for us as people we've been around people, I feel like for us, we're not the average African Americans who've been able to work with people from all over, right? From all over the world. Even though that camp job might seem to be small, being able to even communicate and be around people like that, it broadens your horizon tenfold.
Oh, for sure.
If you think about it, bro, you and I, we've worked with people who've been the bottom of the bottom, people who've been the top of the top, right? A guy who's didn't have anything, who had to hunt for his food, things like that, to someone who's a millionaire, whose parents are millionaires, So I think for us, as we get older, we have to realize, like, nothing comes free.
Right.
Nothing comes free. And the thing about it is that we're not supposed to look at the fruit of our labor until it's time to pick those fruits. Right. And I think, like, going back to our first conversation, which is fasting, I think this right here is like like you said, the foundation of it, right? The start. Us putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations where if I can do this, I can do anything, right?
Right.
For both of us, like, we're trying to become entrepreneurs, and in this race, it's going to be a rat race, because I think it's going to be a time where entrepreneurship is going to be the norm. But I think for us, in this rat race, I think like fasting is going to be like our thing of like, yes, I did this, and I'm matter of fact, I'm still doing it because I'm so disciplined. I can do anything.
Right. You just help me think about something. I I'm trying to think of a way to put this, right? There's some things that people do that keep them grounded, right? And I think fasting can become one of those things, right? A reminder of what it means to be uncomfortable, right? Or to like put off some sense of like gratitude until like a time is marked, right? So like I won't do X until I reach Y, if that makes sense, right? So fasting is kind of like one of those things, right? So like, and thanks again to you for like explaining everything, like the importance of fasting, right? So like to wake up and to prepare for something that's about to happen earlier than you normally would, right? And then to endure, right, this thing that's happening right now, to endure that, and then to reflect up until the time to where you can do like the thing that you wanted to do all day, right? That's like deferring gratification. That's right. I don't know of any other, right? Because like if you want to be a millionaire or a VP, a manager, you want to learn the code, you want to be a consultant or anything, right? I think that you can be, I'm not saying you need a plan, right, to achieve those things, but they can be really helpful, right? So like this is a perfect example of fasting, right? So I want to be a VP. I need to write down how I'm going to be a VP, right? I need to prepare for those things, right? So that can be like year 1, year 2, right? And then like you put together a plan, you're kind of following that through. And then you reach this phase where, let's say the next 5 years, right? You start to build on top of that foundation that you did in year 1, year 2. And then by year 5 or 6 or whenever you become a VP, right? There was a path that you followed. It just didn't happen. It just didn't. No one was just like, okay, you've been here for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. It's time for you to be a VP, right? I'm not saying you need I'm not saying that can't happen, that you need a plan for everything, but it just makes sense, right? So fasting is that. So preparing, you can explain it better than me, but you just don't wake up and start fasting, right? You prepare, right? You prepare your mind. You eat the right food and drink the right amount of water for like what you got going on, right? There isn't just, right? You explain it better, but it's similar to what you need to do in life, right? You shouldn't expect to. In my life, I shouldn't expect for a clothing line just to pop up without putting something together first. It just doesn't, right? It's a lot. Now I'm starting to realize how much planning truly goes into like developing a business, right? Or like starting a clothing line. I mean, you don't just find a supplier, have them manufacture something for you, and then you like sell it, right? You need to, what's the identity of your brand? Like who is it for, right? Like, is this stuff that people want? Does it need to be out there, right? So it's stuff like that.
Definitely, bro. Definitely. And I think like for us as people, being able to prepare things is one of those things that I feel like I want to say it's a lost art per se, but I think we don't put enough attention on it. You know what I mean? Like, for example, us being in school, everything is laid out. It's in the syllabus, right? Day 1, week 1, week 2, week 3, these things are already prepared for you, right? But for us now as an adult, I think we've forgotten the art of preparation. Because at the end of the day, like when you at work is already there for you, right? You already have what they need to do for the next 8 hours of the day. So I think like for us to actually get out and do something there is no one making you do it. There's no one preparing it for you.
Right.
Now, I'm gonna wake up today at 5:30 today. I'm gonna eat, and then by 6 o'clock, I'm not gonna eat nothing at all until later on tonight. Like, that preparation, like you said, like it translates everywhere else, bro. Like it really does. And that's the reason why like I made that group chat. And I think like that's the reason why I knew that you were somebody that's gonna be interested in doing it. So I can tell that you're somebody who wants to try new things, not only because of the rush, like just because of what it can do for you. But I don't have the Zoom upgrade, but they run out of time. But if you don't mind, I'm gonna post this one, bro. It's gonna be a great conversation for sure. I'm gonna call you back on my phone.
Okay.
But I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Yep. Go on.
I appreciate you, bro.
Yo, thank you for watching. Yes, I'm in the closet. I need some more quiet. Anyways, Please like, please subscribe. I got more stuff coming, more workouts, more motivation, and more intellect. See you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum.